Welcome to the Underground.
Turn me up, bitch!
My Little Underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Make sure you're subscribed anywhere you get podcasts and follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at MLU Pod. And you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's Peter_A. Today on the show, we got the Brooklyn-based LA bred artist Nyallah. We'll talk about their brand new single Lately, their Reflections EP from 2019, balancing schoolwork and recording an EP, some takeaways that they learned from studying pop music over at USC, their Loft Sessions initiative, therapy, and so much more right here on My Little Underground. And you can curse and everything. There's no restrictions at all.
I appreciate the transparency off that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because some are like, "Oh, can I curse?" Right after they say "shit, fuck," they say, "Oh, can I curse?" So I thought I'd just clear the air right away. Anyway, welcome to My Little Underground. Thank you for coming out and hanging out on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Yeah. So I want to talk about your latest single, Lately. You put that out back in June on Bandcamp Day. Yes. So has Bandcamp waiving their fees every month helped you out at all?
Yeah. Well, okay. Originally, my headphones just fell. 1 second. We love a malfunction. It wouldn't be music if there wasn't a malfunction.
Yeah, it's one big malfunction, music, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. We're back. I'm sitting down. So I actually just recently made my Bandcamp. Prior to this was more so a streaming artist. I went to college. I went to USC for the pop music program. And they basically teach you more so about touring and streaming and recording, but not really focused on physicals. So it was very scary at first to tap into the world of Bandcamp. But I really appreciate how Bandcamp and so many other organizations and companies are taking the time to put artists first and prioritize the need for artists to be able to make a living, especially right now when we're in the midst of this pandemic and it's, folks aren't really able to get out. We're not able to perform. So I'm really appreciative of Bandcamp in that space, because even with just putting Lately on there, within the first week or so, making a couple $100s, I was like, oh, this is cool that I don't have to wait for 100,000 streams to get a check.
Wow.
So yeah, it's cool. I really fuck with it. I have a lot of friends who are more so in the underground. I mean, I would say that I'm in the underground scene, but more so deep in that lo-fi R&B hip hop scene, and they're constantly releasing stuff on Bandcamp, and they always were pushing me to do it. So I'm happy that I'm now in that loop, because people artists don't realize how great it is to be able to get direct funding from people and from your fans, with playlisting and with any other streaming platform, it takes a minute for you to get a check. So shout out to Bandcamp for that. I don't know if they want to pay me for that, but shout out to Bandcamp for the.
Well, I did a whole show on Bandcamp, so I'm still waiting for my check. You know what I'm saying?
Wow, they got to get it together.
Yeah. So when you were at USC, there was never Bandcamp was never brought up at all. No. Did you go to class with any other indie artists who may have had some sort of knowledge about the service?
No, not really. All of us, I feel we're on the streaming game. I don't know if you know who Umi is, but Umi went to US, or she still goes to USC. People Muna, different folks like that. We all Ione, who's she's great. She's about to graduate this upcoming year. So many different artists, independent artists.
You gotta make me a list. You gotta email me these people.
Oh no, yeah, I got
Please.
you, definitely. All of us, we weren't taught that. I feel at USC they really highlight okay, here are all the ways you can make money. So touring, collaborations. They talk a lot about playlisting, and they also talk about film and television a lot. So the ways that you can get your music placed in films, whether that be like shorts or independent or like, really big like dream work, HBO type of things. But they don't really talk about Bandcamp. I feel like I wonder if in like the industry, like in the music industry, on the higher ups, like if they even go to Bandcamp still. Like I know there's a lot of artists who are like people like Tyler the Creator, Thundercat, folks like that, like they're still on Bandcamp, like they're constantly like, oh yeah, I found music on there. But I wonder if like people who are on a larger scale, folks like Beyonce, for example, or Jay-Z, like I just wonder, I'm like, so do y'all look on Bandcamp or do your people like, but it's not really taught and it should be. But also, I think the reason why we're not really taught about Bandcamp is because they don't want us to make money. And by they, I mean like the industry at large. They're like, y'all artists, no, like sell your soul. So I think that's also part of the reason why we don't really learn about it.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you didn't have at least like maybe one or two classmates that might have known about it.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, or if they did, they probably kept it on the low,
Yeah,
which is a
yeah,
whole separate conversation.
absolutely. And when you were doing your Reflections EP last year, like
Yeah.
how did you balance being a student and being a musician? Like, what was your main priority at that point?
Oh my
School or just
God.
getting your EP done?
It was both. Like I had to. I feel like my whole life is a game of balance, and like I was put on this earth to learn how to balance and how to have like duality and whatnot. And in college, like that's literally what I was doing. So classes were crazy. I mean, the first 2 years of college, you start at least 3 days a week at 8 a.m. Like there's no way out of it as like a pop music major because you have oral skills, music theory, ear training, music history. There's all these classes that are requirements that you have to take super early in the morning. So imagine starting your day at like, I mean, I lived far from campus my sophomore year on. So imagine getting up at like 7 every day and then like you get in every day at like between 8 and 10 o'clock. More so 10 o'clock because you have rehearsals, your classes are jam packed. The way that the Thornton School of Music pop program is set up, you have all basically they like lower the amount of units each class is worth so that you can take more shit. So like a regular college student is taking four at USC is taking 4 or 5 classes at least, each class being like 4 units, right? In the music program, it's no, okay, ear training's 1 unit, music history is 2 units, like your lessons are 1 unit, blah 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 blah. Your performance class is 2 units, so you're basically taking 7 to 9, really 7 to 10 classes a semester. Um, and that was really hard, but I'm always been like a student. I'm very much like a student to this day. So it wasn't really hard for me to like manage my time, but it gets very overwhelming because a lot of things have to give and take. Like I had to go in and out of being an artist sometimes and performing for 2 months straight, and then I wouldn't perform because I had to focus on school and I had to make sure that my grades were up. And so that was very, I don't want to, I mean, it was hard, but I feel like it was a really big learning lesson. Like, it taught me how to have my hand in multiple buckets and to be able to do everything well, like, not turn in everything and it be a C. And it also taught me that, like, if you're doing 7 or 8 different things, sometimes you're going to have, like, one or two of those things is going to fail or isn't going to be as great as you hoped. But, like, you just got to keep going. So, school really taught me how to balance, like, I would be in class. I would purposely make my schedule where like I would have at least 2 or 3 days a week where I had like 12 hours of class or like or 12 hours of rehearsal or whatever. And then like the rest of the week would be free so that I could do work, so that I could nap, so I could write music, so I could go to the studio, record. So it was very like very much a like Tetris game, an active Tetris game when it came to balancing school and music, but I did it. And I've seen so many more people after me do it so well. Like I'm very thankful to I mean I would say like I was one of those people who was like a building block of no, you can be an artist and you can be a student and you can be great at both. because we didn't really see that before at USC. It was more so like people would get into their stardom and then they drop out. Or like they would try to get through school and then they would just like put their artistry to the side until they graduated. So it was a very big balancing act, but I mean, I'm still very much that way to this day. Like, I have my day jobs. Like, I do a lot of project management work. I'm working for my friend's production company right now. So I'm doing like project management in terms of timelines, making sure that the work is getting done, making sure we're doing things in a timely manner, which is all skills that I've learned from being a full time artist and musician. So it's cool to be able to do that. And then, like, to do this, like, it'd be 6 o'clock and then now I'm doing my art things, like now I'm sitting here like having an interview or I'm working on music or I'm hanging out with a friend and talking about art and whatnot. So it was, yeah, long story, but very much like a balancing act. But I would not change it and I wouldn't trade it in because there's so many people who come out of programs like that, like not being heavily skilled in something, like having their hands in multiple things, but not being, I don't want to say the best, but not being advanced or highly skilled, So I feel good about that. I have no regrets.
What was the biggest takeaway for you for your popular music curriculum? And I'm sure that you might have taken some of the things you might have learned and applied it to your music.
Right. I would say number one, that Black people invented everything because in school they'd
Ain't
like,
that the truth?
no, seriously, like in school they're constantly trying to shove down your throat that music started in the 1700s in Europe and all this shit that doesn't fucking make sense. And then like you go to your performance class and it's like, how come all the music that we're working on from the 30s, from the 20s to now, so basically 100 years of music, how come all of this music is basically Black if it wasn't written by us, or if it wasn't performed by us, like it was inspired by our culture or by our influences. So that was one thing that I pulled away from school. And then number two, I would say that I'm more gifted than I give myself credit. Like USC's Thornton program was a hard ass fucking program. Like only hundreds and thousands of people apply, only a couple hundred get auditions, and then only 25 people make it every year. So just reminding myself of like, I'm so capable, not only because I was able to beat those odds. I didn't get in the first time and then reapply again and I was able to get in, but also to like see the ways in which, like, because I'm a good student, I'm a great artist because I'm always willing to learn. Like, I'm always willing to be open to new experiences. And if it wasn't for, I mean, no, I feel like if it wasn't for going to USC, I wouldn't have learned that. Like, I wouldn't have been like spoon fed all of this material that I can now regurgitate off the top of my head. Like people can talk to me about like, oh, have you ever thought about having your music in film? Like, well, what are the pros and cons of that? And I can sit and tell you the pros and cons, or like, oh, I've had experience in this, or da da da. So I am very thankful for not only the access to the information that I received, but also just the information itself. Um, because this was such vital stuff that is, a lot of it's really logical, but we're not taught that. Like artists, especially independent artists, especially artists from like multicultural backgrounds, so like Black and brown people, queer and trans folks, women, like we're not given the same resources as our white peers who've been raised since they were 5 taking piano lessons or vocal lessons or whatever the fuck. So to be able to just be in that space was such a blessing, because I was like, oh shit, like I already know a lot of this, but when you're not outside of the academic space, the knowledge and the materials and the information that we know about music, we know through like slang and other terms, So to be able to go into school and then be like, oh, okay, like that's what you mean when you're saying like we're talking about the kick drum, and that's what you mean when you're saying that the music feels smooth and it's legato. Okay, like these are the quote technical terms, but I've always known this information.
Yeah, I think that's great that you have that takeaway and you're able to love yourself and your culture while
Mm-hmm.
maneuvering in a white dominated space. And
Yes.
your a cappella group, aside from the lack of diversity and
Mm-hmm.
people touching your hair without consent, what are some positive lessons that you've learned from being in this group that you may have or may have not applied to your music?
Oh my gosh. I am so happy that people bring this up because it was such a painful time. For me, that whole experience taught me the importance of being mindful of who you have in your corner and how much information and how much access you allow people to have of you. Like, when I, not to say that like this is not me specifically referring to the hair thing, but just like a lesson that I learned from that was like, here I am protecting myself, being like, I don't feel comfortable, like you guys are objectifying me, you're exoticizing me, like I'm giving you these terms and I'm defining these terms for you, which is extreme labor as a black queer femme, but you're demanding that I do it for you, as if you don't have an iPhone that's more advanced than mine, um or like five computers or whatever. I feel like that really showed me, because like I was just speaking my truth. I was like, hey, this, I'm feeling unsafe, like I don't feel comfortable. And somebody who really loves you and really cares about you will sit and honor how you are feeling and how their actions have made you feel, and they're going to make an effort to at least right their wrongs or change their behavior. And so from that instance, to see that that was not how I like receive support, and like even to have, there were other people of color in the group who were also shaming me and like trying to beg for me to come back because of them. Like they wanted somebody else. They wanted me and my bluntness and my directness, but they didn't want me as a person, as like Nyallah. So that whole experience really just taught me to be mindful and to like trust your gut, and also trust like when somebody shows you themselves, like believe that shit. Because I mean, the hair thing was the worst thing, but there have been so many microaggressive things that happened prior. Like, and even after that, like I left the group, and there's a whole thing where if you leave these acapella groups, like you have a vow of safety and like privacy. So they're not supposed to repeat why you left. 3 months later, they repeated why I left. And next thing you know, I'm getting bombarded with all of these white people and their stupid apologies. Not even apologies, them begging me to apologize to them for leaving, even though you physically touched me, and basically we can call it assault. It's not that deep, but like you basically touched me without my consent on several occasions. So that really just showed me like, not, like not all white people are fucked up, but a lot of them are. And it's not like I'm not gonna sit and be heartbroken about it, because the reality is there's 500 years of bullshit that has not been worked through for them as in a collective, that me and my black folks, we still have to work through. We're still working through the trauma. So I feel like that taught me to not take white gaze so like as the gaze, like not like taking white gaze as the thing that I need for validation. Um, yeah, that really taught me that. And then I would say another thing that taught me was the ways that we all have our own privileges, and like the way it's important that we check ourselves consistently on our privileges and check ourselves on the ways that we can oppress somebody else. Like there were a couple other black people who knew about this situation, who were like in the group or were allies of the group, and they're sitting here gaslighting me, telling me to take one for the team, but it's like, here you are, a black man, trying to tell me in my black femininity, like tell me how I need to exist. But like, your hair isn't long. They're not touching your hair. You're not being objectified in the same ways as me. Or like white women trying to be buddy buddy with me in the face of men. But then when it comes to race, they want to be quiet or they want to change the subject. So that just really taught me that like, really, I just have to continue to stick with my own and continue to put black folks first, put put black folks and people first who are prioritizing inclusivity and intersectionality in their work and in the work that they support. Because it's one thing for you to be like, oh yeah, like I care about black people, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, whoop whoop whoop. But then like when you have somebody who's a black person in your life directly, and they are telling you like, yo, you're doing some violent behavior, and violence doesn't have to be physical, like it can be emotional or mental or whatever. um it's about like, what do you do at home? Like, you can use your Twitter fingers, but when somebody calls you out on your behavior directly, are you going to get defensive, or are you going to be willing to get checked and to work on yourself? Because the only reason why somebody's calling you out is out of care. Like, I'm calling you out because I want you to do better. Like, I'm calling you out so somebody else doesn't beat your ass, really.
Mm.
And it's like, I'm not everybody's gonna be as nice as me. Not everybody is gonna be, not everybody not gonna blow up. Some days I might blow up, some days I might not. But it's like, just being mindful of that, like, that really just taught me to continue to not take things personally. That's something I'm still working on as a 22-year-old. I'll probably still be working on it for a little bit longer. But yeah, to not take things personally, and to just remember that, like, I know my heart, I know my intention, I know why I'm here. And if you're gonna sit and try to say that something I need is unnecessary, okay, we don't have to interact. I don't really get offended anymore. Those white people really taught me that, and I'm thankful for that.
You really just got the big picture, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking you're in a acapella group. You might have picked up harmonies, arrangements, but no, you're seeing Black consciousness, love yourself, know yourself. Wow.
Yeah. And not even just love yourself, but like respect yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, on the musical realm, I really got a lot, like, in terms of harmony, in terms of arrangement, especially I feel like in terms of arrangement, because we made our own arrangements in the acapella group on Troy Tones. I don't care. I'll drop the name. But, well, not but. And but I do feel, actually no, but I do feel like harmony and stuff like that. I was learning before acapella group. Like, I was in show choir when I was in high school. I was in classical chamber choir all through high school, middle school. Like, I did musical theater, so I know harmony. Like, harmony is easy for me. I'm one of those people where, like, a song can play and I'll just start harmonizing to it, and I'll switch the harmonies in the midst of it. I would say though that being in an acapella group did help me in terms of being in any sort of group. I really urge, like, upcoming artists to not only do solo work but also do group work, because it helps you look at the bigger picture and to focus on the music, right? Like, it's not all about you. You're able to sit and be like, okay, the altos are kind of too loud. Like, we need to hear the bass and the second tenor. So let's blend and create a picture. I feel like when you're in a group, it's all about, okay, let's come together and create a oneness, like a one sound, one energy, versus when you're a solo artist, there's so much more that you have to think about, and very important stuff that you have to think about. I just think it's important that we get the balance of both, because it's important to understand what it's like to be the lead, what it's like to be the ensemble member, what it's like to be the tech, what it's like to be behind the scenes. I'm very much a firm believer in shifting roles, because in order for you to do your role well, you kind of have to know what other people are doing, like, you kind of do have to know, like, what, like, why we have these particular roles and why these particular people are doing what they're doing. So there's
So
that.
when you came to New York,
Yeah.
did you see the same amount of lack of diversity the same lack of diversity in the music scene here in New York that you did when you were in your a cappella group?
Mm-mm. Not at all. um First of all, I'm so thankful to be able to live in New York and to be able to be a part of the arts community out here, because the arts community here is like nothing I've ever seen. I definitely see, like, the black community in LA, and the arts black community in LA is definitely taking mad notes, because the way that folks just show up for each other here is just fucking beautiful. Hold on 1 second. Let me turn off my AC because it's mad loud. Okay, I'm back.
Look, I get it. It's very, very hot today. So
Yo, it's so fucking hot. Are you in New York too?
yeah, I'm out on Long Island.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What is it like over there? Isn't there water? So is it a little bit cooler? No?
Well,
Yeah.
we still, it's the same kind. The thing is, like, we're more spread out than than you guys are in the boroughs, but
Yeah.
it's still hot as hot. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's
Only
facts.
like 30 minutes away from you, so it's the same amount of
It's the
hot.
same shit. No, it's the same shit. Facts.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, like within the music community in New York, there is like I love how everybody's for collaboration. Like everybody's really on this community focus, like where they're like, okay, like I don't need to do everything by myself. Like I can do it as a collective. Like I can sit and like be my own individual and have my own network and all that. But I can also lend my network and I can also collaborate with other artists who have similar focuses, similar intentions, and like not only spread music and share music, but also like share knowledge and insight. Mm, I really fuck with the community here. Like, and also realness is so important. And I'm so thankful that New York is a place where like you can't bullshit. In LA, I mean, granted, that's my city. I love LA. However, I mean, granted, I'm a transplant in New York. The transplants in LA though, in the same way in New York, it's like they be fucking shit up because when people be like, "Oh my god, LA is so bad. Oh, I get so stressed." Da da da. I'm like, you've been hanging around transplants too much because real LA people, we chilling. We are focused on community and we're focused on doing right by our folks. But it is really hard to be able to do that when there's so many people who aren't from the space who are then trying to claim LA and then are trying to like do work for the community, but like it's more so performative. Like I'm so thankful that there's things like Pray for the Hood. I'm so thankful for things like Make Crenshaw Great Again and fuck, what is it called? I think it's South Central Cleanup. Like different initiatives like that were started by people from Los Angeles, from South Central, recognizing that, okay, like we're the next generation. If we're not sitting here taking care of ourselves and doing right by our community and doing right by our ancestors and our parents, like what the fuck are we doing? Like we can't let everything go to waste. So I'm thankful to be seeing like that there's an uprising of that in LA. But what I love about New York is how that's such a regular. Like for example, one of my like I just moved and one of my roommates, she has this like event series where basically she will collect resources for different like homeless folks or folks who are in need. So whether that be diapers, pads, clothes, water, whatever, like she will host like let's say like a house party of some sort, and the entry will be people bringing these supplies. And then there's artists who are performing, artists who are sharing their work. So it becomes a whole collaborative experience, where it's like we're recognizing that art and community aren't separate things, they're together. And art and social justice and community activism are like they're all intersecting. And if you aren't doing like various things, like if you're just creating art, like that's cool, but you also got to find ways to show up for your folks and do right by community and do the work. So I love that in New York. Like New York is dope because niggas are like, all right, so what the fuck you doing? Like what the fuck are you doing? I love that. I love that it's just so community focused. That's why I wanted to move here. Like when I was still visiting here in college, I almost went to school out here, but the program at USC was much better. And I wanted to move out here because the first time I came out here, I was like, oh my God, look at all these black people, which is amazing because in LA, everything is so spread out. So I grew up like in North Hollywood, which is super duper far from like all the black communities. I grew up in like Latinx communities around like Mexicans and Salvadorians and also Asian folks like Koreans and Filipinos and folks like that. So mind you, that was great to be in all that culture. Like sometimes I'm like, oh damn, I do wish I grew up like in South Central, or I grew up like in Inglewood, or like even where my mom grew up, which was like Baldwin Hills, like View Park area. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I was more central in the blackness. But what I love about being in New York is like I can exist as a 20 something around so many different black cultures, so many different types of black people, and just see us like exist and see us interact experience all of our food. Like I can have Jamaican food one day and I can have Haitian food next day, and and I can have Southern food and this, that, and the other. And I can get African food, which is amazing because I'm half Sierra Leonean, and in LA it's hard to find African food because shit be spaced out. So I love that even though we're all up on each other, it's nice to like go outside and see people that look like me, because growing up that wasn't the case, and then going to school that really wasn't the case, and that was a mind fuck because USC is in the middle of South Central. So what the fuck do we look like having a school of 60% white people? Everybody else makes up the 40%, the other 40%, and like our whole neighborhood is black and brown, but you don't see that on campus. So yeah, I'm so privileged and I'm so thankful that I'm able to exist in the space of New York, and that like I've been welcomed into these creative communities, and that folks deem my voice as valid in the space, because they don't have to do that shit. Like I'll be looking at motherfuckers in LA and I'll be like, why the fuck, who the fuck is this? Why are you doing that? Who's behind you on this? Like who co-signed you on this? Not in the sense of like, oh, do you have clout, but just in the sense of like, is you valid, bro? Like, do niggas know you in the community? Like, are you just some vulture trying to come in and take flicks for the gram and try to be the next Nipsey? Like, what's the goal? So with it. But yeah, like I really love New York. I mean, I love LA too. Like I miss it. I've been saying I really want to go back, and this pandemic is fucking me up because I can't go back. I want some tacos, and I'm tired of making all the food that I miss, and it doesn't slap the same.
So tell me about your loft sessions and the
Oh,
inspiration behind it.
mm-hmm. I'm trying to smoke. This is hard.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can tell.
yeah, it's like a struggle. Yeah, I had Loft Sessions was an event series that I started. What was that? Sophomore year of college. Basically, I started the Loft Sessions because I was seeing that there was a disproportionate lack of representation of Black musicians and Black creatives in my school, but also in LA. Like when I would see the people who were performing at at big venues and like local venues and doing ticketed shows, like it would be these folk artists and these singer songwriters, and power to y'all, but like that's not the only type of music that exists. And at my school, like they were only deeming cracker music, which is what I call white people music.
What?
And I be calling it cracker music sometimes because white
But
people.
listen, they're just reappropriating black music.
No, exactly. So that's why I'm like, no, it's like literally like how y'all ancestors were when y'all heard us doing like what's that motherfucker's name? There was this father son duo. We learned about them in music history. Basically, they would go into the jails, this white father son duo. They would go into jails in the South, and they would go in with tape recorders, and they would interview Black prisoners and would record them singing songs, and then sold those songs, and then made an archive, and they then felt like they were valid because they were like, if it wasn't for us, this piece of history would have been erased, which is bullshit, which is why I call it cracker music, because y'all got me fucked up. And people don't know that. It's like, what's his name? Can't think what the Black man's name is. I'll do some research and I'll send it to you.
Cool.
Anyway, to circle all the way back. So yeah, Loft Sessions, like I would want to be performing, and outside of like my showcases for school, I wasn't really performing like that. Like I could do house parties, but like I couldn't do like not I couldn't. I wasn't able to do like ticketed shows because my music and other Black people's music wasn't deemed as like um I don't know what they thought it wasn't. I guess they thought it wasn't palatable or it wasn't profitable. That's the word, profitable. Um, so I said, fuck that, because every time I went to all these stupid frat boy parties, y'all always playing Black music. Okay. Y'all like having your Black homies in there. So y'all look cool. So there's no way that you're gonna sit here and try to tell me. And also beyond that, beyond the white gaze, I know that our music, based off of being in school for 2 years, is the backbone of everything. So I decided to make Loft Sessions as a opportunity and a space for Black people and Black creatives to share their work. So I would create a lineup of like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 artists, and then I'd have like DJs and whatnot. And then I would have visual artists, and they'd all be Black artists. At first, the first couple ones were the first two were like USC and UCLA students only, because my team at the time was like some of my really good friends at UCLA and then like my good friends at SC. And I was just like, let's make this like a, a collaborative like thing, because USC and UCLA are known for rival schools, and but really the reality is they're only rivals in the sense of football, sports, and like the white people. So why do we have this rivalry? Um, so I created that space for us, and basically people could apply. The first, like, I would curate the show, so people could apply, and then I would go through the applications, and then I would curate the show, and it'd have specific themes and whatnot. And it ended up being super dope. It was also like it was like a super cheap show. Like USC students like was $3, everybody else was 5, like super cheap. So anybody could come up in there. Like it was like a cheaper option for parties that were happening. And it also just gave folks an opportunity not only to listen to their homies, but to learn about new music and learn about new art. Like to dance and groove to somebody that you've never heard of before, and then to support them as an independent artist, and to continue to listen to them afterwards. Or also, like, there were so many, it was a space for creative Black people to come and connect and to meet each other. So I would always be like, hey, I need a second, I need to go get some water. Like, introduce yourself to 3 people and tell them what you do and share your information. If it vibes, like, do that. I was like, we're family, we're a community. It's important that we respect each other and that we recognize that if we don't do the work, who's going to? So yeah, that's what the Loft Session was. We did 4, 5 of them, and then I had to stop because I was putting my EP. I like was putting Reflections on hold, and I was like, wait a minute, I need to like work on my art. Like, I love y'all, but I need to also like heal and do, share my own stuff. So that was dope. It was really cool. I definitely want to bring it back. I've already have it rebranded and have the idea. I just need the money, because moving forward, I want to pay artists. Before, it was more so on some like, oh, the homie would do it or the homie's homie. But I really wanted to pay people, like, beyond feeding them, like, beyond giving them a space. Like, I want to pay folks, because the reality is exposure don't pay. At the time, it was chill because exposure was helpful. But now, like, moving forward in just the world that we're in, I want to just make sure that I'm paying folks, because we have to continue to, what's the right word for it? We basically have to continue to set the example. We have to continue to make sure that we're doing our part to make sure that we're putting each other on. um, yeah, because these corporations gonna have their own perspective, but like, as long as we continue to hold ourselves down, we're gonna be fine.
So tell me some of the differences and similarities between choosing a therapist in New York versus the West Coast.
Oh my God, you looked me up so deeply. Okay, so I mean, I guess I would say choosing a therapist here has been, the therapists I've had in New York have been great so far. I've had 2. My first one, I only had her for like 5 months, maybe. No, not even. Like a couple months, and then she ended up moving on to a higher position in another office. And then my latest therapist I have, her name's Alicia. She's great. She is an
Black?
no, she's an Asian woman,
Mhm.
and that's been really chill. For me, I feel like, okay, so I am very much like, I have had really bad experiences with white therapists, with white folks. I'm a lot of my marginalized identities, so folks don't really fuck with me sometimes. It's whatever, that's their shit.
Wow.
Um, but I've
No,
had,
it's true. It's true.
it's true. Like, I've had some therapists in the past where they they were centering their white guilt more than they were centering the fact that it was my therapy session for my healing. um I've definitely experienced like feeling silenced or feeling like I can't share my full experience with my therapist in the past because of race, like because of their lack of understanding of race. Um, but I've also, I did recently, one of my therapists, she was white, but she was cool. I think the reason why she was cool was because she was young, and also I think she was queer. Like, she never said transparently, but it was implied in many of our conversations. And I really fucked with her because off rip, she was like, I told her, I said, I've had experiences in the past with white therapists where they have not heard me. They've been like more so worried about their anxiety of having a black client. And she told me, she was like, listen, like, she said, I understand. She's like, I know that I'm white. I know that I'm not going to personally understand your experiences. I recognize that. And she was like, like, at any time, she's like, this is about you and your wellness and your well-being and your health. She said, at any time, if you feel like this does not work for you, we can stop. Like, you can, and I can redirect you to somebody else and give you some references. Because she was like, at the end of the day, your well-being and your health is like, this is what's we're focusing on. We're not focused on like, oh, this makes me feel weird or da 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 or whatever the issue is. And I fucked with her because she said that off rip, but I think that's also because I was direct about the off rip. But I think she just has had experience versus like this other, I've had other white therapists where like, I think when I was younger, I didn't have like, like, you grow up being black, but you don't necessarily understand every time something is because you're black, like something happens to you because you're black. And I think when I was growing up, like, obviously I didn't have the language or the understanding to understand race in the way of like, oh, my white therapist, she's worried about seeming racist more than she's worried about my safety. But I didn't have that language back then, so I didn't really get that. But now as an adult, and like once, like when I had that therapist in college, and once I like was able to be like, oh, okay, like this is more about you. Like, you're more so worried about how you look more than you're worried about my safety, and my safety in the sense of like my wellness. My latest therapist, like I said, she's Asian and she's great. I really fuck with her. We've had a similar conversation in the beginning where I just told her, I was like, listen, I've never had like a person of color. I've had one black therapist, but I was like, I've never had a person of color as a therapist. And I was like, I do experience a lot of like anti-blackness, but like, and I would like to talk about anti-blackness that I've experienced, or like behavior that is anti-black that I've experienced from non-black people of color. And she was very transparent and very much like, I'm willing to have those conversations with you, and like, I'm here for you in whatever capacity that you need. And she was like, and if you ever feel like this isn't working, like, you can let me know. So I think it's really on the therapist. It's not on the client. It's on the therapist to decide, and to not even decide, but to determine whether or not they have the range and the capacity to be able to deal with intersectional, multicultural issues. And if they don't feel like they have the range for that, they shouldn't be a therapist. Cause like, all of your clients are not gonna always be white. They're not always gonna be rich. They're not always gonna be able bodied. They're not always gonna have all of the, like, we all have privilege. Don't get me wrong. We all have privilege, but they're not always gonna be like reflections of you, like literal reflections, because we're all reflections of each other, but like a literal reflection. And therapists have to do that work. They need to also check themselves in their anti-blackness, in their colorism, and their sexism, their homophobia, whatever the fuck, whatever isms and eas, bias and whatnot, phobias and whatnot. um it's important that they do that work, because it shouldn't be the job of the client to do that work for you. And it shouldn't take somebody's wellness and their well-being to be under attack for you to then recognize, oh, I have some work to do. I also just feel like the medical field is anti-black as hell and femphobic and all this crap. So I'm not fully surprised. It would be great if the medical fields would take the time to explore that and talk more about their erasure and discrimination. But that would take a lot of time, and that's not my field of study. But I'm gonna put that hope out into the universe.
So you having an Asian therapist, Do you feel like, even though she's not black, do you feel like she was more understanding of what you were going through than your previous white therapist?
Yes, definitely. Not the white therapist that I've just recently had, like, in the last year, but definitely ones prior. I do also just think in general, like, people of color, non-white people understand oppression in the sense of, like, them in relation to white people. And I think it's like a very much a case by case thing. Like, in a perfect world, it would be great for all of us to recognize anti-blackness and colorism in all facets and classism, all these things in all facets, but that's not always the case, and I recognize that. Um, but I do appreciate I think she has more of an understanding because of her experience. Even though I don't know what her obviously I don't know like her personal background or backstory and whatnot, but I think the fact that she is a person of color, she is able to resonate a little more. But that does not mean necessarily that just because she's a person of color or just because someone's a person of color that they inherently understand black experience and black issues, because every non black person of color has so much anti-blackness rooted in how they were raised and their parents and respectability politics and all that shit. So I do think she does have a better understanding, but I do just think in general, like, and I think as you get closer up the scale, right? So it's like the darker people get and the darker also in terms of like your culture, right? So in relation to whiteness. So the more complex your culture is, and as you're going up the totem pole, if we're saying like whiteness is at the bottom and blackness is at the top, if we're going up the totem pole, realistically, it's like, yeah, the closer you are to like what we're the complex and like very ranged space of blackness, the closer you get there, the ideally that's the more understanding you'd be able to get like colorism and anti-blackness and racism. But that's ideally. That's not always the reality, as we know.
So, what's your plan with lately? Are you gonna have a full length album, another EP, or what?
So with lately, I wanted to do a video for it. So originally I wasn't gonna release it until summer. Like I wasn't gonna release it until like right now, honestly, like July. But then the pandemic hit, so I wasn't like we weren't able to do the video because, we're social distancing. Um, I would like to, once we're able to open back up, I would love to do a video because I have a really beautiful idea, but it requires a lot of people. So I'm like thinking about ways that we can do it. Um, but I do want to do a video. Project wise, I'm not really focused on doing like a EP or an album. My goal is by the end of the year, maybe I'll release like one or two more songs, like on some, okay, this is where I'm at right now, because I want folks to see my progress. Right now, I've been working a lot on like production. I've been working a lot on like creating my own composition and arrangement, which has been amazing, and songwriting. I've been taking lessons with one of my mentors from school, Patrice Rushen, and that's been such a privilege to be able to learn and gain insight from such a talented, multidimensional, brilliant woman. She's great. Um, so yeah, right now I'm really just focusing on improving and bettering my skills, like not being so worried about rushing to get shit out. Like we live in like this current time where we're so focused on the next thing all the time. And I just don't want to do that shit anymore. Like in school too, like academia, it teaches you to rush, rush, rush. It's in capitalism, it teaches you to quickly execute things so you can get to the next thing, but you need to execute it efficiently. And I'm right now focused on let me get everything done efficiently and make sure that there's no holes and just feel confident about whatever next material, next music that I share. I'm not really like, I think at first I had this vision of like at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a project done and I'm gonna do these videos and I'm gonna do this and da da da. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I don't need to rush. Like, I'm still gonna be talented. I'm still gonna write great music. Like, I don't need to rush. Why is there dust in my throat to get to the next thing? Yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. Lots of creating and lots of reading. Like I've been, we were talking earlier about the importance of making sure that, as an artist, you're also combining that social justice work and that community work. So I've been doing a lot of reading and a lot of educating myself so that I want to drink this water, but it's not cold. I'm going to drink it. 1 second. Yeah, so I've just been doing a lot of educating myself and reading, looking back on history and looking back on people who came before me that I pull inspiration from and influence from, and seeing what they had to say about, whatever they were experiencing and the circumstances and the trauma and everything that was going on and the joy in their lives. And I've also just been really deepening my politic and deepening like what I'm talking about in music, because Reflections was very personal and I appreciate it for being personal. But now I want to get to a universal message, like still talk about my personal experiences, but cultivate it in a way where it's universal. And we're also talking about Black issues and Black liberation and joy, and just talking about just my experience as a whole. I think before I kept thinking, oh, like if I want to talk about being queer, like that's a separate song. And if I want to talk about being Black, that's a separate song. And I'm focused on like, no, like this is me, take it or leave it. We're talking about all this in this moment. Like we're recognizing that I could be like excited that it's Pride Month and then sad that I can't celebrate it, and also sad that Black people are being killed. Like there's range, and I don't have to limit myself to like one particular thing.
All right. Nyallah, thank you so much for being on My Little Underground. Let everybody know where they can find you and your music and whatnot, social media. This is your time.
Yes. You can find me on Instagram at Nyallah. It's gonna be N, and there's a period, YALLAH. You can find all of my music on all the streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube, all them things under Nyallah, all caps. I have a website where I will be posting all of my updates, whether that be new music. I have a newsletter that I just started recently that folks can sign up for. If you search my name, nyallah.com, NYALLAH.com, and go through the page. It's really beautiful. This person, Amani, created. They're amazing. If you scroll all the way down, you can sign up for a little newsletter. I basically like share updates on a music, whether that be like numbers, music that's being released, or behind the scenes stuff, as well as my thoughts. So if y'all are interested in signing up for that newsletter, which is called Hear Me Out for a Sec, go to my website and do that. But yeah, I'm also on Twitter, but like I don't really be on there like that. But if folks want to follow me, that's chill, because I do need to get my follower count up. Um, it's Nyallah Music. Yeah, that's basically it. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun talking and hearing somebody like literally do research on me. I was like, damn, you've done it all. You know all the things. That was
I
fun.
appreciate that.
Yes.
Oh yeah, so good.
I
Thank
hope
you so
you
much.
stay cool, because Lord, it is hot out here.
Oh yeah, the first thing I'm doing after we stop is taking a swig of water. So
Immediately.
immediately. All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.